The Central Division, the NBA Cup, a rivalry, dare I say. Pacers Bucks back in action tonight after a heated series last year, after the NBA Cup battle last year. Two teams trying to climb back from slow starts. We'll discuss it all today on a crossover, Locked On Pacers and Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody, happy Friday. Welcome into Locked On Pacers and Locked On Bucks, where you can get the latest and greatest about both teams here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Robinhood Gold, providing you the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold, and you can sign up at robinhood.com/gold. The Pacers and the Bucks are both exactly what everybody thought, at 6-9 and struggling to find their footing early in the season, and now meet for a faded game where both teams can try to get on track. One team trending down, one team trending up. I'm Tony East. I host Locked On Pacers, and to get to the bottom of this, to discuss the rivalry word, the NBA Cup, and why these teams haven't been as good as anybody thought, we got to get both of us here. From Locked On Bucks, it's Camille Davis. Camille, thankfully, we're not talking about the 76ers.
Oh, man. Thankfully. Like, things have not gone the way neither one of us expected for the Bucks or the Pacers, but at least we're not Philly right now. At least we are not Philly. The vibes still seem like they're okay in Milwaukee. They've been pretty good. Seem like they've been all right in Indiana, given that the fact the Pacers are a little bit underachieving right now. But Philly, that's a different story right there.
Has your co-host Justin called you out for being late to anything? If so, you guys are doing great too, right? That's the deal.
Not yet. No, not yet at this point. Justin, I mean, a little tardy sometimes, but not to the detriment.
We'll leave it to Tyrese Maxey to call out people for tardiness. Yeah, I think that's kind of the most interesting plot line of this game is, look, the East stinks, so both of these teams are fine in terms of what their season could end up, but they're both 6-9, and they both hoped to build off of last year for various reasons. For the Pacers, their youth and continuity. For the Bucks, very solid minimum signings in free agency and what was thought to be improved health, although Chris Middleton still hasn't played. And now they're both sit here 6-9 trying to get on track, although the Bucks have won 4 of their last 5. Pacers a little bit trending the opposite direction. Why have the Bucks started so slow to you? Because it seems like everyone from the outside has the same perception, and this includes me, to be clear, that they're old and kind of unathletic, but then when you watch them, Giannis is so good that it doesn't feel that way. Why to you have they not looked as good as they hoped they would look?
A lot of it, I think, comes down to execution. Like, going into this season, you had a lot of stability from the pieces that were coming in. Like, you still had Giannis, you still had Dame, Chris, Brooke, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, 6 vets who have been playing on this team now for a while here. And then the Dame addition who came last season. But as you mentioned, in the offseason, the Bucks were able to pick up a few different pieces, Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr., DeLon Wright. And it's taken a little bit, I feel like, for them to find their chemistry, as well as for Doc to find what the right rotation is going to be for this team. And as of late, you've been seeing the young Bucks come in, and they've been really making a difference with AJ Green, who has been shooting lights out from 3, and also proving to be a very capable defender. Andre Jackson Jr., whose athleticism just jumps off the page, and he comes in and can really flip a game with his energy, as well as someone like even Ryan Rollins, who's injured now, but was assuming the backup point guard duties for the Bucks as a two-way guard for the team. So the youth has really helped, as well as just guys understanding their roles a bit better and executing, because there were times where it's just too casual. The pace was not right for the Bucks, and you're seeing them play with the proper focus more so recently.
You know what's been interesting to me, and credit to you guys and every local Bucks expert, is that to me, I thought, Gary Trent's been really struggling early. They need some athleticism. They should start Andre Jackson. And they did once, but everyone who covers the Bucks was like, no, they should start AJ Green.
Yep.
And they started starting AJ Green, and guess what? That was right. He's been really good as a starter, and it's helped that team execute. And I think that just a little bit of spacing and movement shooting has helped a lot. Not a lot of people know who AJ Green is. How has he helped so much? Is it just those two things, shooting, movement, and like you said, defending a little bit?
Yeah, that's been a big thing for the Bucks. The Bucks this season haven't gotten up as many threes as I think they even want to. AJ Green definitely helps with that equation, especially given the fact that he's been shooting it so well. But the other part of it is defensively, where you see a lot of teams when AJ's out there, they're trying to pick on AJ Green, not understanding that he's a capable defender. And Doc Rivers said, like, I hope they never figure it out. And I hope they keep going at AJ Green because it's going to work in our benefit. And then Dame added, like, yeah, people are going to try him because he's like a 6'3", 6'4" white guy, and they don't expect to see him out there playing the way that he has. But defensively, he has been really strong. He's a smart defender. Outside of the game winning play against Houston, where there was a bad switch with him and Gary Trent Jr. and there was a free player running to the hoop. But outside of something like that, he's just been so solid defensively. And this is a Bucks team that has been looking for point of attack defenders, and AJ Green is somebody who has stepped up for them in that role.
Well, it's ironic you say that because I liked the Bucks offseason so much, both because the players they got made sense to me, but also because looking through the lens of the Milwaukee Bucks from the Pacers, the reason the Pacers crushed them to me last year is no one could stop any Pacers guards. Like every game, even if Haliburton was off, like Mathurin, McConnell, Buddy Hield, Bruce Brown, someone had an awesome game. And they only would lose if they didn't Nemhard even a few times. Like if they lost, it was largely because that didn't happen. But that's why they handled the Bucks well. As their perimeter defense was terrible, and why they traded for Patrick Beverley to me, because he can kind of defend. He's not as good as his rep, but he can kind of defend. And so Gary Trent can defend. Delon Wright can defend. And yet they haven't kind of provided as much juice as I thought. I'm curious on your take. I think Prince has been their best offseason addition so far. Why haven't those two done what most, including me, thought they would do? Because to me, that would change. To me, that was going to make the Bucks pretty good, as having some sort of perimeter stoppage from those two guys.
That's a fair question. And I think for someone like Gary Trent Jr., it's just been a little bit of a different transition for him in the role that he's being asked to play as a primary defender for this team, and then finding his place offensively as well. Gary Trent Jr. isn't really known for being just a catch and shoot type of guy. He's somebody who likes to have the ball in his hands, create his own shot, and get to it. And a lot of shooting guards who play for the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis, they've been reduced to being a catch and shoot specialist. So a bit of it has been Gary, I think, just trying to find his place offensively. And he got off to a really slow start shooting the ball. He went through a big shooting slump, but over the last few games, you've been seeing that shot drop for him, and you've been seeing his minutes increase as well, because he's been coming off the bench now since he got off to that slow start, and Doc's been trying to figure out the rotations. And as for Delon Wright, he's also somebody who just seems like he's been taking a while to figure out his game flow, how he fits the rotation. And he's been somebody over the last few weeks who, one, he felt the rotation as well, but is back now because the Bucks have had a few injuries. But he's somebody who seems to be getting more comfortable. And you see that on the defensive end with the deflections and his activity. So I think that those free agent additions are going to continue to be stronger as the season goes on, especially whenever Chris Middleton does make his way back into the Bucks lineup.
Yeah, it was Chris Middleton versus the Pacers for a lot of that series last year. My gosh, it's so sad to see him not play for this first month, and that will rebalance the rotation again. Yeah, I just thought those additions would help so much, right? In my head of just from, again, the Pacers lens makes it seem so obvious, but like Beverly couldn't guard anybody. Connaughton's perimeter defense wasn't good enough last year. They just couldn't do it, right? And so I thought they targeted the right positions. And yet, many will say the Bucks' ceiling has been lowered because Dame might not be as good this past season. Giannis, second, third, maybe first in some people's eyes for MVP, looks great. Brook Lopez having quite the week or two all of a sudden. He looks great again. Maybe Middleton will return. But Dame doesn't look like Dame as much or as often as he used to anymore. What do you see there? Is there something to do to get him going? Is he just in his mid-30s now as a small guard? Where's this trending?
I think he's just been missing shots over the last few games in particular, because he had a stretch there where he had at least 34 in 3 straight games. And then he got the concussion, and since then it's just been a little bit off. He's been really cold from 3, but Dame has been able to find a way to still put his will on the game. He's been leaning more into that playmaking bag over the last few games for the Bucks. 10 assists, I believe, in the last 2 games that he's had for the team. And I think when the shot starts falling, it's going to look a bit different for him. He's getting to the spots that you want him to get to. The chemistry between him and Giannis is continuously developing, as well as his chemistry with Brook Lopez. The offense flow has been clunky this season, but over the last few weeks, you've seen it kind of coming together a little bit more. But for Dame, he has to just keep doing what he's doing right now. And the shots, keep taking them, keep being aggressive. And soon they should fall, because Dame is much better than what we have been seeing over the last 3-4 games from him from long range. So Dame has to keep being Dame. I don't think he has been as disappointing as some people from the outside might believe if they haven't been watching him consistently, but still kind of finding his place there. And then the concussion, I think, slowed that down a little bit for him.
Yeah, that heater stretch really like turned the Bucks season a little bit too. Like they've been much better since he got rolling, even though that scoring hasn't produced. Looking forward to seeing this game because there's going to be a little bit more emotions. But let's talk about the Pacers first. Camille, before we talk some Pacers, I think you got to tell some people about some stuff.
We have all hit a point where we realize it's time to make some serious money moves. Like you are at your last dollar. I can't keep doing this. I have to make some changes. So take control of your finances by using a Chime checking account with features like no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Join millions of Chime members who are working on financial progress. This is how it works. You set up a direct deposit on your Chime account, and after a qualifying direct deposit of at least $200, Chime will then notify you to enroll in SpotMe. And then with an activated debit card, Chime will spot you up to $200 when you exceed your balance. Your next direct deposit is applied to your negative balance, and Chime will never charge fees or interest for you using that SpotMe feature. So make your fall finances a little greener by working towards your financial goals with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/NBA. That's chime.com/NBA. Chime. Feels like progress. And now for some mandatory disclosures. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank NA or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in SpotMe and are subject to monthly limits. Terms and conditions apply. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. There is nothing quite like watching a game live. The energy in the building, being able to just scream and let everything out while you're watching your favorite team. That's why I love going to Game Time and get my tickets when my team is playing. But Game Time isn't just clutch for NBA tickets or sporting events alone. Game Time has tickets for all events. So if there's a show or a concert you've been interested in, Game Time will have you covered for that as well. Plus, with Game Time picks, curation makes it even easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. Game Time picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste any time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. I personally love the ability to toggle the all-in pricing to show the total up front with no surprise fees, because if you don't know this about me, I am cheap, okay? And I need to know how much I'm going to have to spend immediately up front. And Game Time allows that with the all-in pricing. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Continuing here, Locked On Pacers and Locked On Bucks, the crossover of a now, I'll say it, these teams don't like each other. It's a rivalry, right? They're in division. They played in the playoffs.
Yes,
that
sir.
was what everybody said last year. It's not a rivalry until they play in the playoffs. Well, they did, dang it, and it was awesome. I do want to talk more about that and the vaunted NBA Cup. But the Pacers are also 6-9 and not playing very well. What intrigues you about the struggling right now Indiana Pacers?
What is going on with that Pacers offense right now? Like, that is something for this team, especially being driven by Haliburton, that I thought could take another leap going into this season, especially with Spicy P being there in the offseason, be able to work on things. But so far, the offense for the Pacers just hasn't looked like the Pacers that we saw last year. They were second in pace last year, down to 10th so far this season. And I mean, a historic offensive rating last year. Second in the league, 121.6. And the Pacers have dropped all the way to 16th so far this season. What is going on with that Pacers offense?
You nailed it. That's why they've struggled, right? Their defense has been about what it was to close last season, a little better than their total season production from last year, but they can't score as much. Their pace is 10th, which is not the same as last year. Their offensive rating below average. What? Like, that's supposed to be their whole thing this year, was they're going to come in, they're going to score 130, they're going to give up 125, and they're going to win. And It's hard for that to happen. They can't score as much. Lots of layers. I would say the biggest part of it is just Haliburton, right? You brought him up, and last year he was one of the best 10 to 5 players in the NBA for the first 3 months, and then was the 30th to 25th best player after his injury. And this season he's been well below that even. If you look at just his volume and accuracy from the field, he's like the worst shooter at his volume ever. Like no one has shot this poorly on his volume in NBA history. He can't make anything. Something is bothering him in some way. I just did 18 minutes on this yesterday on Locked On Pacers, so I won't dive into it too much, but he's not looking at the rim as much. His shot diet's different. The way he moves is different. He's not the same player. And that is everything, right? He was their identity a lot of times last year. Now, they also could score a lot, as the Bucks know all too well, because when their bench came in, they kept that identity. And TJ McConnell was great, and all these other guys fit really well around him. And that group also played fast, and they led the league in bench scoring. And those guys have been fine, but not at that level, right? They're probably like the 7th or 8th best bench. That's really hurt them. Injuries have crushed them. They were missing 3 starters on their game Monday with Nesmith, Nembhard, and Turnaround. They've been missing. They lost 2 centers to Achilles tears, 6 games apart. Yeah. That's kind of tough to overcome, right? Now Ben Shepherd's missing time. Like they're just signing guys to play. Like right now, 2-way guys are starting. The Bucks won't hear any sympathy there because they started Ryan Rollins for a game. Either way, like last year, the Pacers were really healthy. So lots of stuff that was great for them last year has just been pretty good this year. Their superstar has been bad a lot of times, and they're really hurt. So a lot of stuff that made them great last year isn't happening, and they just have scraped enough wins to not look totally out of whack. And if they win this game, they'll be 7-9 and be like, yeah, that's okay. We're okay with that. But they haven't looked like themselves sans a game against the Knicks and a game against the Mavs. All the rest, they've kind of just snuck out, and they've got to find a way to look like themselves because, yeah, the East stinks. They might just get the 10 seed anyway, but it's getting away from them. They've lost 4 or 5.
And with that, how have injuries been affecting this team? Because as you mentioned, the 2 centers both tearing their Achilles that close to one another.
Thanks.
First of all, it was really strange. And when Wiseman tore his, he was starting the season off looking really good in that game as well before he got injured. Yeah. And then another center goes down. And the Pacers are a team now, especially without Jalen Smith on the roster anymore, who's now in Chicago. What have they been doing to shore up behind Miles Turner and Spicy Pete?
Usually, so the Bucks actually know this well because last year when Bobby Portis was the backup 5 for the Bucks in the playoffs, the Pacers felt comfortable going with this Obi Toppin, Pascal Siakam front court a lot. So they tried a lot of that. They would play small with their bench with Obi Toppin at the 5. And again, some teams like Milwaukee last year and a couple teams this year, that's been okay. They can play small and play fast and score enough that it works. And again, some teams, that does not work. that is too small and not enough defense. They went away from it in the second round of the playoffs when they played the Knicks, right? They said, we need Isaiah Jackson now, and they don't have that. So that was their initial plan because they're so close to luxury tax that they didn't really make sense for them to sign someone right away if they could get by with that. But then Toppin missed a game. It was his first missed game with the Pacers ever last weekend against the Knicks. Turner missed the game Monday. It was a back-to-back. He played 40 minutes the night before. All of a sudden, they can do it. Like they've been playing Enrique Freeman, who's like a fine energy big, but he's a late second-round pick who's 6'7". Like, that's not a center. So they went and got Moses Brown this week. I don't know. Did he ever play for the Bucks? He's played for lots of teams. I don't think he did.
Not the Bucks, huh?
He is very tall, and I don't know how much he'll play. Like, they have to find a matchup where he's a better backup 5 than Toppin. The Bucks are certainly not one of those. That's their plan at center, is what the matchup dictates, I suppose. But it's been tough. They've had to rely a lot on Turner, which is fine. He's played okay on offense. He got to rebound a little better. He's played okay on offense, which has worked out for them, but it's hard. They can't rely on him for this many minutes. That's the real issue, and I think that's why they had to get somebody.
Well, you mentioned the fact too, like the Bucks started 2-8. They've been 4-1 over the last 5. Should be 5-0 had the refs not gotten that call against LaMelo Ball that way. But neither here nor there at the moment.
Okay, wait. Can I complain about that?
Please do.
Doc Rivers got whatever about the call, like refs missed calls. It still sucks. The Bucks got screwed. Doc Rivers got fined, and the refs admitted on the last 2 minutes reports they were wrong. Why is he getting fined when he was right? That's what I don't get.
I guess the criticism doesn't matter. Like, you can't criticize at all, even if you were right about.
You're right. Yeah, I don't. It's not criticism. It's stating a fact at that point. That felt weird to me. Anyway.
So strange. But I mean, the Bucks have over the last few games, they've been rebounding, and you can see it in their numbers as well for the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, over their last 5 games, you can really see their growth. They've been 11th in offense, 8th in defense over the last 5. Giannis has been cooking. Brooke has been cooking. But you mentioned for the Pacers, over the last few, it hasn't been trending in the right direction. What has been going on outside like the injuries, but just the play on the court for this team? And do you see a pathway for them to kind of start turning the corner? Because for Milwaukee, it feels like, hey, we found something. We can see the pathway that we should be following. let's continue down this road here. But have you seen that for the Pacers so far of like, hey, we've seen flashes. This is what we should do. This is how the process should look. And this is how they should continue going forward.
It's almost like they're in a sinking ship with a different hole to plug every game. And it's not to say that they can't bring the ship back up eventually. It's just right now, that's what it feels like. The first game they lost, and there's 4 out of 5 losses. They lost to the Magic in Orlando, and they defended very well. And they gave up only 94, and their starters played pretty well, and their bench was awful. If their bench was as good as it was the next 4 games, they win that game, right? Then they played the Heat at home, and it was a pathetic effort game, right? And they benched their starters twice in the second half, just full hockey subs. And then if they had that effort, they had the following game against the Heat, they would have won that one. They played Toronto on Monday, and they were out of centers, and they couldn't stop Jakob Poeltl in the paint. If they were healthy for that game, or healthier, they might have won that one, and they just played the Rockets and turned the ball over a gazillion times, and Tyrese Haliburton looked terrible. If he played like he did against the Heat the second time, or any number of different games, they could have won that one. So it's like a different thing hurting them every game, which is a consistency thing, which is partially an effort thing, which is partially a who's available thing. It's hard to really answer that with just one blanket. Like, this one thing would make them better. Haliburton playing better is probably the biggest answer there. But it's just a lot of things. And that's why Carlisle has talked a lot about effort and hustle and just things of that nature really holding them back, because consistency in that area would go a long way for them. It hasn't really happened, and they're playing a lot of new lineups that probably should never have played together this season, but they're forced to do it. So it's just been goofy and hard to solve all their problems at once that they have every night. And every new opponent presents a new challenge for a team that has their own challenges that are changing every game. And the Bucks with Giannis will be another one. So the rare nights that they get good starter play, good enough Haliburton, and decent bench, they look like last year. And that's how they've won 6 times, but that hasn't happened enough. That's why they are where they are.
And now we're getting set up for this NBA Cup game for the Bucks and the Pacers Friday night in Milwaukee. And I'm very excited about it. First time for the Pacers and the Bucks meeting so far this season. But also, just again, the NBA Cup, I felt like last year for the Pacers kind of helped propel them. Like, it was a moment for them to really gel, come together. And I'm hoping for the same for the Bucks this year, but we can talk a bit more about that on the other side of the break as well. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25 APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account contribution. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC.
Crossover continues. Locked On Bucks and Locked On Pacers. It's the NBA Cup. I love the Cup. I've been a huge fan. If it makes players try 1% more and it has zero downside, thumbs up. I'm in. Before we talk about the Cup and this, I have to ask you the very generic question. Okay. Do you think Pacers Bucks, as constructed right now, is a rivalry?
Yes, it's a new one. Like, it's bubbling. It's bubbling. I felt like it was last year. I know people were like, "Oh, you need to go to the playoffs for it to be a rivalry," before they had the playoff series. But I mean, seeing one team 5 times in the regular season is unheard of.
And it was like 2 months apart for all the games. Yeah,
that too. And then you had like the whole ball gate situation when Giannis broke the franchise scoring record when he dropped 64, and the only regular season win for the Bucks against the Pacers. So I think there's something there. When you see a team 11 times in 1 year, including regular season and playoffs, and you only win 3 of those times, on the Bucks side, like, you have to be ready for this game. And like, we got to get our get back now.
Yeah, over 10% of the Pacers games last year against the Bucks.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And it were really concentrated to like mid-November to early January, and then the playoff series. And so, yeah, I was on that train last year where, like, I think the NBA Cup game in Vegas certainly is bigger than a normal game. Like, that added to it. And then Haliburton does the Dame time thing. And that was what it was. And then Ballgate happened. And Oscar Tshiebwe's not on the Pacers anymore. So maybe that is a thing of the past, right? But all these little things like Bobby Portis and someone would tussle every game. That's not a shot against Portis. That's what he does, right? It's fine. James Johnson gets signed the day after. Like all these little things that just kept happening. And I kept saying like, yeah, like they clearly don't like each other, but like can't get to rivalry until there's a series. Oh boy, did we get a series that plenty more of the tussles and people throwing basketballs at fans who are no longer involved.
So when you say it like that, Tony, it sounds even more intense than living through it was. Like, man, a lot happened in these games.
A lot happened. Teams. And so I think these teams don't like each other, which that's good. That is a good thing. I love that for the NBA. So ironically, the guy whose perspective I wanted last year the most was Jordan Juarez because he played for the Bucks before. Like he got a nice present that made me laugh from Brook Lopez during the season. Like I knew he was still pretty tight with a lot of those Bucks guys, and he was like, "Yeah, maybe. I mean, this is a thing, right? This is a bigger game." So I kind of think it is now. They had a series. It would have definitely been a thing if Giannis had played in said series. Yeah. Result, whatever it would have been had he played. So I think it is, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how those teams respond to it with the added backdrop of the Cup, which both of these teams had loved the NBA Cup last year. They got a nice NBA-sponsored trip to Las Vegas out of it. So, of course, the Bucks lost that game and lost the series and would like to say, no, we would like to avenge those things. And for years, Giannis destroyed this Pacers team.
Yeah.
Last year was the first time he didn't, but he played well. They just couldn't stop the Pacers. And so that's how I wonder what comes to it this time is if Giannis plays well, just if the Bucks defend 10% better, they might just win. They might just take the juice out of this thing.
I mean, Giannis played well against the Pacers last year as well. They just couldn't get the wins out of it, which was really disappointing on the Bucks side of things. But I think Giannis is ready. Giannis has been playing with such a good pace this season to the point where he understands every game is going to be a little bit different. Like if this is a team that's going to play me in a way where they're going to be really aggressive and sending doubles and sending walls, I understand have to lean more into that playmaking. But if I get favorable matchups, I am going to be really aggressive and attack. And you saw that in full effect against the Bulls in their last game, as well as even against like the Raptors, against the Pistons, just different ways that he has been playing the game in order to find a way for this team to win. And I think against the Pacers, that's going to be a matchup that he's very much looking forward to, even outside of the fact that who's going to hold Giannis on this team, but he didn't get a chance to play in that playoff series last year at all. It was all on Chris Middleton's back for the most part because Damian got banged up. So I think
could Giannis have been better than Chris Middleton was? I mean, come on.
Listen, I'm a Chris Middleton stan.
The clear answer is yes, but my God.
So watching him in that series was really fun, even though he gave up both his ankles pretty much to play that series, and we haven't seen him since. But for Giannis coming through here, I think he is going to have a game against the Pacers. Over the last 5, he's averaging 33 points, 11 rebounds, a little bit over 7 assists, 2 blocks, and he's shooting 62% for the field over his last 5 games. He had 2 games where he shot over 70% from the field in his last 5. Giannis has been rolling over the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, and the Pacers didn't have good answers to put. Like their best defender on him last year was maybe Ben Mathurin. Sometimes
little guys on Giannis seem to work.
Yeah, you could swipe down some.
Be a little bit more aggressive.
The thing ironically, their best defense was just putting 3 on him and forcing him to pass. That really worked. And he said he's a natural passer, and I believe him, but I think he's working his way through that. So they might just try that and see if someone else beats him, I guess. But I wonder what the juice will look like, right? Because that 64-point game, he was just unstoppable, right? Or so if Dame is going and he looks like that, it might just be chalked for a Pacers team that can't score at the level they did last year. Just how they won sometimes. They said, okay, Giannis could score 40. We'll score more and just win. I think they need Haliburton to be great. I think he needs that home cooking, that Wisconsin crowd to give him a lift. He's from there. I know he likes playing there.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't get going, it's going to be very hard for me to imagine this version of the Pacers finding enough ways to score because the Bucks have been playing better and scoring more effectively. It's just going to be tough. So I think the juice of the rivalry can help everybody. I think the NBA Cup should help both teams, although the Pacers' first NBA Cup game was pathetic. Their whole starting 5 got benched twice. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they respond to that because they looked awful, and they've never lost a road NBA Cup game, which is funny to say.
I'm looking forward to seeing the point guard battle in this game as well.
Yeah.
We've talked a bit about how Haliburton has been struggled, mentioned how Dame's shot hasn't been falling over the last few games. And it feels like this would be a great time for Dame to rediscover that shooting touch. You know, the Bucks have a really home heavy schedule in November as well, which I think has been helpful for them. So that's a matchup I'm very much looking forward to seeing, that Tyrese Haliburton, Damian Lillard matchup, and seeing who the Bucks start on Haliburton as well. If Andre Jackson Jr. is still in that lineup, I would assume it's him. I expect to see some AJ Green on Haliburton as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing how those young Bucks can do defensively, kind of trying to get the head of the snake of that Pacers offense, Haliburton, off his rhythm. Well, keep him off his rhythm and don't let this be the game where he finds that shooting touch.
Yeah, last year was funny in the playoffs because I don't think anybody guarded the player guarding that.
Right.
Because of how these teams are constructed. And maybe that happens if it's Ajax and Haliburton, because it just naturally makes sense for both of them. But yeah, it was really funny. Like, it made transition matching up hard, and it was very complicated, but that's how the playoffs are. It's harder to do that in the regular season. I can't wait. There's enough continuity on both these teams that there's going to be juice. I'll be there. I don't know if you will. I hope you can go, but I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Do you have anything else on Pacers Bucks, Camille?
Man, I'm looking forward to it. The Pacers are still a team that do a lot of the right things that the Bucks can struggle with, like that transition defense, the rebounding. So I just want to see how this matchup looks. I'm excited for the next step of this Pacers-Bucks rivalry, especially seeing the court. I love the NBA Cup courts as well. I know some people hate the courts, but that Bucks blue court, I can't wait to see it.
Is this their first home game with the blue?
No, they normally wear the black jerseys, I think, with the blue court. So it'll be the black on the blue for the
Very
Bucks.
nice. That'll look nice.
Yeah.
One of these teams. I mean, wait, did the Bucks won their first NBA Cup game? Am I crazy? They did win.
1-0 right now.
That's right. Yeah, never mind. I was going to say Pacers need to win to stay alive in this thing after last year. It could be over in a flash.
Yeah.
Getting 2 losses. A lot at stake. I'm looking forward to it. If you want to hear more about the Bucks side of what happens in Pacers Bucks, oh boy. Is there a podcast for you? Is there not?
Absolutely. Locked On Bucks, me, Justin Garcia, Frank Madden, all have you covered for the Milwaukee Bucks news. And of course, I know Bucks fans are going to be in the Locked On Pacers YouTube, watching the video in the game afterwards, especially if it's a Bucks win.
Yes, well, break it all down on Saturday, actually, on Locked On Pacers. Have some nice weekend fun. So looking forward to that. And if you have questions about how the Bucks are ascending, I believe you guys just did one about their identity, all clicking. Tyrese Haliburton, the subject of much discussion. You can find that on Locked On Pacers yesterday. So keep up with both teams in the NBA on your favorite Locked On podcast. We got one for every single team in the NBA. Thank you all for tuning in today. Have a great weekend. We'll both see you very soon.